All right. This is going to be a short tutorial on how to make logo designs, vector logo designs using Adobe Illustrator. We're picking Adobe Illustrator primarily because we have been sticking to Adobe suite of softwares for graphics design. If you are looking for some open source alternatives, you can alternatively explore Inkscape, which is equally good. In some perspective, maybe even better than Illustrator in some perspective. But again, as part of graphics design industry lead, Illustrator still signs out. If you want to do an in-depth comparison between Inkscape and Illustrator, I'll add this link in the description. It's from a blog site called Template Toaster. You can check out and read this entire article, which gives you a in-depth understanding on what are the core differences between using an open source software, Inkscape, versus Adobe's proprietary software, Illustrator. Now, of course, using the Adobe's cloud suite of softwares is the ideal approach. If in case you are willing to use the cracked copy, you can download cracked version softwares from Get Into PC if you want. But provided that you've already installed this software in your device, you can then use it to create any kind of vector artwork. In this particular episode, I'll just be talking about logo designs in Illustrator. Although Illustrator could be used for pretty much any kind of vector design, such as creating character designs, converting an otherwise raster image into a vector image, and so on. Okay, so I'm very quickly going to boot up Illustrator here in my system. This is a slightly older version of Illustrator. It's CS6, but considering it has almost all the features I'm about to cover for this tutorial, shouldn't be an issue. If you are using an older version or a newer one, it won't matter much. To start this lesson, I would like to draw the parallels between Photoshop and Illustrator because I'm assuming that you're coming from a Photoshop background. In which case, the overall user interface is extremely familiar to what you might have been seeing in over there in Adobe Photoshop. The standard is the same here. We have menu bar at the very top. You have panels at the right, and you have a toolbar towards the left. Again, just like Adobe Photoshop, the overall user interface is fluid, meaning that you can easily interchange the position of the toolbar as well as the panels. You can even quickly arrange the window workspace into a standard presets, for example, printing, tracing, typography, web, so on. By default, it is set as Essentials, and I'd prefer to use the same Essentials user interface for this particular exercise. Next step would be to go to File, select New. That leads us to a new file pop-up. Now, because Illustrator is focused on vector editing, which is often used for scalable design, and because it's scalable design, the prenotation is that it's probably used for printing. And that is why the color mode is set to CMYK by default. You could, however, change it to RGB if you want, provided you're planning not to print it. But again, the very fundamentals of graphics design suggests that if you plan on making something that's going to be printed, you'd rather stick to using CMYK color mode. In Illustrator, you can still use some raster designs. For example, if you're using light glare, or if you're using drop shadow, or even gradients for that matter. These are certain aspects of the design which could be rasterized. And that is as you are viewing it on your screen, which is still pixel based. So for that, you have this second setting, which is called raster effects. I normally tend to keep it at medium, 150 ppi. If you have performance issues on your devices, you can scale it down to 72. And if you want an absolute, like you want to see the design in its optimal resolution, you can change the raster effects to 300. However, that would cause more of your RAM to be used, and therefore causing slight performance issues if your device does not have enough RAM. Okay, so with that said, you can set the width and height. These are very basic things. It's common sense here. I again recommend to use units as pixels. That way, you will not have made a absurdly large document. For this exercise, I'll just use 1000 pixel width and 800 pixel as height. You can switch between portrait and landscape orientation. This is very similar to Photoshop. And then you have this section which is number of artboards. By default, it is set to 1. Now, artboards in Illustrator is synonymous to canvas in Photoshop. Now, if you disregard the latest version of Photoshop, the earlier older versions actually used to only have one canvas per document, but latest version of Photoshop actually does support multiple artboards or multiple canvases in a traditional sense. In case of Illustrator, for now, I'll just set it to one single artboard. Again, understand that in Illustrator you do have the feature or the flexibility to work on multiple artboards parallelly in the same document. I'll not discuss that as part of this exercise anymore because we're just going to look at basic logo design here. So I'll just do OK. That gives me access to a blank artboard. Now again, I'll make most of my discussion here in correlation to Photoshop. So if you look at the toolbar section here, you will realize that there are two colors, just like in Photoshop. In Photoshop, you would have foreground and background color picker, which in Illustrator is replaced by a fill color and stroke color. Now you'll have to realize, unlike Photoshop, in Illustrator, you are not bound by layers. So you don't have to create separate layers or individual layers for individual objects. You can literally make multiple objects right out of the go directly onto the artboard. You can directly pick the fill color that you want for the object. So for instance, I'll try to draw a circle for now. I'm going to pick the fill color as double clicking here. I'll pick red and then I'll select this black color and set it to blue. So that's whatever object I draw next is going to be it's going to be, if I draw a circle, it's going to be a red circle with a blue stroke. The size of the stroke or the width of the stroke can be controlled from the options panel at the top here, right below the menu bar. Right now it is 1 point. I can increase that as necessary. And then if I go here in the tools section, find the ellipse tool, shortcut is L in the keyboard, as you can see here. I'll press shift to lock the aspect ratio. In some version, you may want to unhold the shift depending on which version you are using. The idea is to unlock aspect ratio by using the shortcut shift. Once I do that, as you can see here, I can easily draw a circle. And the circle has your fill and stroke. Even better, in Photoshop, when you wanted to change the overall color of a shape-based layer, you would either have to make a marquee selection and replace the fill with a fill tool, or you would have to alternatively use color overlay. So there were like a bunch of steps involved to successfully change the color of a pixel-based shape that you have already drawn. On the contrary, in Illustrator, you don't need to go through all that trouble. You have a panel, a dedicated panel for appearance. As long as you have actively selected a shape, you can very quickly change its stroke color or fill color by simply accessing the appearance panel. As you can see here, if I go back to this stroke color of picker, and then if I pick the black color, as you can see, it has black stroke now. I could do the same for fill, and if I select any different color, just like that, I'm selecting green, now it has green color. Okay. So this is super simple. Changing both stroke color and fill color is extremely intuitive in Illustrator because you have direct access. Even without the appearance panel, you can directly go access the toolbar and change the colors to make it reflect onto the object. The only prerequisite or requirement is that you are actively selecting the object. Okay. Now, again, I cannot fathom to complete all of the features of Illustrator in this single exercise, but today's primary goal is just logo designs. So let me use the type tool, text tool, which is very similar to Photoshop again. And then I'll just say logo designs. I'm just going to type a basic text here. Logo design. All right. Now I'm going to use this Illustrator itself to do a little bit of explanation about logo design or the fundamental principles of logo design. Before you try to pick a logo or a branding for your particular application, it's a good idea to first try and understand the different types of logo designs. So ideally, we have, let's say, flat logo designs. I'll use images, or I'll switch to my browser to show you some sample designs which will further clarify these concepts. So we could have flat logo designs, we could have three-dimensional logo designs. There are also isometric logo designs. We can use typographical logo designs. Okay, so